Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Liberty, staring at the empty space where Earth used to shine like a blue jewel. Now there was only darkness and the cold glow of alien ships surrounding his home planet. 3 years had passed since the Zephyrians came from the stars, bringing death and destruction to everything humans held dear. Jake was tired. His brown hair had gray streaks now, and his blue eyes had seen too much war. The uniform he wore was patched and faded, just like the hope in his heart. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with quiet determination. They all knew they were losing this war. The Zephyrians were not like humans. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like glass and arms that moved like water. Their ships were massive and beautiful, but they brought only pain. For 3 years, they had been killing humans and taking their worlds. They thought humans were nothing more than bugs to be stepped on. Amy Chen sat at the pilot controls, her small hands dancing over the buttons. She was the best pilot Jake had ever seen, able to fly through asteroid fields and enemy fire like she was born in space. Next to her, Ben Hayes worked on keeping the ship running. His tools were always in his hands, fixing things that the war had broken. Kate Sullivan checked her weapons for the 10th time that day. She was a Marine, a soldier who had fought the aliens hand-to-hand and lived to tell about it. Her face was scarred from battle, but her green eyes still burned with the need to protect what was left of humanity. The communication system made a soft beep. Jake's heart jumped. Only one person had access to this secret channel. "Luna calling Liberty," came the voice through the speakers. It was quiet and careful, like always. Luna Price was their spy inside the enemy. For 3 years, she had been sending information that kept the human fleet alive. No one knew what she looked like or where she came from. She was just a voice, in the dark, helping them fight when everything seemed lost. "Liberty here," Jake said into the microphone. "What do you have for us, Luna?" There was a pause. When Luna spoke again, her voice was different. She sounded scared, and Luna was never scared. "Jake, listen carefully. The Zephyrians have built something terrible. They call it the Nova Sword. It's not just a weapon. It's a planet killer. They're going to use it on Earth in 72 hours. The bridge went silent. Amy stopped flying. Ben stopped fixing. Kate stopped checking her weapons. Everyone stared at Jake, waiting for him to say something, anything, that would make this news less terrible. "Where is this weapon?" Jake asked. "On their command ship, the Void Crusher. It's the biggest ship in their fleet, Jake. The size of a small moon. I've been trying to get close to it for months, but now..." Luna's voice broke a little. "They know who I am. They know I'm a spy." Jake felt cold fear run through his body. Luna had been their guardian angel for 3 years. She had warned them about attacks, told them where to hide, shown them weak spots in enemy defenses. Without her, they would all be dead already. "Can you get out?" Jake asked. "No. They're coming for me now. But Jake, I have the codes, the shutdown. Codes for the Nova Sword. If you can get to me, if you can extract me from this ship, I can give you the information you need to stop it." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was looking back at him, waiting for orders. They all knew this was probably a trap. The Zephyrians were smart. They might be using Luna to draw the Liberty into a fight they couldn't win. But what choice did they have? If Luna was telling the truth, Earth would be destroyed in 3 days. Every human left alive would die. The war would be over, and the aliens would win. "Where are you?" Jake asked. "Detention Level 7, Section 12. But Jake, the ship is heavily guarded. You'll need your best people for this. And you'll need to hurry. I don't think I can hold out much longer under interrogation." Jake made his decision. He had been making hard choices for 3 years. This was just one more. "We're coming for you, Luna. Hold on." "Jake," Luna said, and her voice was very quiet now. "There's something else you need to know. The Nova Sword isn't just pointed at Earth, it's part of a network. If they activate it, it won't just destroy our planet. It will destroy space itself, reality itself. They don't just want to kill us. They want to erase us from existence, like we never happened at all. The communication ended with a burst of static. Jake stared at the silent speakers, thinking about what Luna had just told them. The Zephyrians didn't just hate humans, they wanted to remove them from history itself. "Amy," Jake said, turning to his pilot. "Set course for the Void Crusher. Ben, I need everything this ship has to give. Kate, get your Marines ready. We're going into the belly of the beast." Amy's fingers moved over her controls. "Course set, Captain. But Jake, that ship has enough firepower to destroy us 100 times over." "Then we better not let them see us coming," Jake said. He activated the ship's communications system to talk to his entire crew. "All hands, this is the captain. We have a mission. Our agent inside the enemy fleet needs extraction. She has information that could save Earth and end this war. This is going to be dangerous. Anyone who wants to stay behind can transfer to another ship." Jake waited. No one moved. No one spoke. His crew had been through hell with him for 3 years. They weren't going to abandon him now. "Good," Jake said. "Amy, take us in. Use the asteroid field for cover. Ben, keep our engines quiet. Kate, prep your team for boarding action." The Liberty moved forward through space, a small human ship heading toward the massive alien fleet. Jake watched the enemy vessels grow larger on his screen. Somewhere in that forest of deadly ships was Luna Price, the woman who had kept them alive for 3 years. The woman whose real name they didn't know, whose face they had never seen. As they got closer to the Void Crusher, Jake wondered about the person who had sacrificed everything for people she had never met. Who was Luna Price? Why had she risked her life for humanity? And what would they find when they finally met her face to face? The war had taken everything from Jake, his home, his family, his hope for the future. But Luna had given him something to fight for. Now it was time to return the favor, even if it killed them all. The Liberty moved like a ghost through the asteroid field, hiding behind floating rocks the size of buildings. Jake watched the enemy fleet grow larger on his screen. The Zephyrian ships were beautiful in a terrible way, curved and smooth like living things made of metal and light. But the biggest one made his breath catch in his throat. The Void Crusher was enormous. It stretched across space like a small moon, covered in weapons and glowing with alien energy. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. This was where Luna was trapped, somewhere deep inside that massive ship. "Getting close to their patrol route," Amy whispered from her pilot seat. Her hands were steady on the controls, but Jake could see sweat on her forehead. "Their sensors are scanning the asteroid field." Ben worked quickly at his station, fingers flying over the controls. "I'm reducing our power output to minimum. We'll look like just another piece of space rock on their scanners." Kate checked her weapons one more time. She had chosen her best. Marines for this mission. Tough men and women who had fought aliens before and lived. They stood ready near the airlock, their faces painted black, their armor silent. "There," Amy said, pointing at her screen. "The Void Crusher's docking bay. It's opening for a supply ship." Jake watched a smaller alien vessel approach the massive command ship. The docking bay was huge, big enough to hold 20 human ships. But it also meant they had a way inside. "Can you get us close to that supply ship?" Jake asked. Amy smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "I can get us so close we'll be breathing the same air. But once we're inside, there's no going back. That ship won't leave for hours." "Do it," Jake said. The Liberty moved carefully through space, staying in the shadow of the supply ship. Amy was the best pilot Jake had ever seen, and she proved it now. She matched the alien ship's speed and direction perfectly, so close that their hulls almost touched. When the supply ship entered the docking bay, the Liberty went with it. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. They were inside the enemy ship now, trapped but hidden. Jake looked around the docking bay through the Liberty's cameras. It was like nothing he had ever seen. The walls curved and bent like they were alive, covered in strange patterns that glowed with soft light. Zephyrian workers moved around the supply ship, but they didn't walk like humans. They flowed like water, their long arms reaching and bending in ways that made Jake feel sick. "The air is breathable," Ben reported, checking his instruments. "But it burns. Human lungs aren't made for this." Kate handed out breathing masks to her team. "These will help, but not for long. We need to move fast." Jake put on his own mask and checked his weapon. It was an old human rifle, simple but reliable. The Zephyrians had better technology, but humans had learned to fight smart instead of fancy. "Luna said detention level 7, section 12, Jake reminded his team. "That's deep inside the ship. We'll have to fight our way there." "What about getting out?" asked one of Kate's Marines, a young man named Danny who still had hope in his eyes. "We'll figure that out when we get there," Jake said. It wasn't a good answer, but it was the only one he had. They left the Liberty hidden behind cargo containers and moved into the ship's corridors. Jake had studied Zephyrian ships before, but being inside one was different. The walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting slowly. The floor was soft under their feet, like walking on skin. Strange symbols glowed and faded along the ceiling, and the air tasted like metal and electricity. "This way," Kate whispered, checking a small device that showed Luna's location. The signal was weak but steady, coming from somewhere deep below them. They moved through the corridors like shadows, stopping whenever they heard footsteps. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, with skin that looked like glass and 4 arms that moved independently. Their faces had no nose, just slits where air went in and out. Their eyes were huge and black, seeing things humans couldn't see. Jake's team had been fighting these aliens for 3 years, but they were still terrifying up close. When a group of Zephyrian guards came around a corner, Kate's Marines were ready. The fight was quick and brutal. Human weapons fired bullets of metal and energy. Zephyrian weapons shot beams of light that could cut through steel. But humans were faster and more desperate. They had learned to fight dirty, to use tricks and teamwork to beat enemies with better technology. When the guards were dead, Jake looked at their strange faces and felt nothing. 3 years of war had taught him not to think of them as people. They were the enemy, and the enemy wanted to destroy everything he loved. "We need to move," Kate said, reloading her weapon. "That fight made noise. More will come." They ran through the corridors, following Kate's device toward Luna's signal. The ship was like a maze with passages that led nowhere and rooms that seemed to change size when no one was looking. Sometimes they had to crawl through spaces barely big enough for a human body. Sometimes they ran across chambers so large they couldn't see the other side. Jake began to understand how huge this ship really was. It wasn't just a warship. It was a city, a world unto itself, with thousands of Zephyrians living and working. Inside its metal walls, they reached a transport shaft that went down into the ship's depths. It was like an elevator, but it moved by itself, carrying passengers up and down on platforms of solid light. "Detention level 7 is way down there," Ben said, looking at his scanner. "That's near the ship's core." They stepped onto one of the light platforms. It carried them down through the ship's levels, past rooms full of alien machinery and corridors where Zephyrians worked at tasks Jake couldn't understand. The deeper they went, the stranger everything became. At level 5, the gravity changed. Jake felt his stomach drop as up became down and down became sideways. His team held on to each other as the platform adjusted to the new gravity field. "How do they live like this?" Danny asked, his voice muffled by his breathing mask. "They're not human," Kate said simply. "They don't think like us or feel like us. That's why they can do what they do to our worlds." Finally, they reached detention. Level 7. The platform stopped at a corridor lined with energy cages. Each cage held a prisoner from a different world, creatures Jake had never seen before, beings the Zephyrians had captured from across the galaxy. "Section 12 is this way," Kate said, checking her device. They moved carefully past the cages. Some of the prisoners looked at them with hope, others with fear. A few seemed to be sleeping, or maybe they were dead. Jake tried not to look too closely. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights flashed, and a voice spoke in the Zephyrian language, harsh and musical at the same time. "They found the dead guards," Ben said. "The whole ship knows we're here now." Jake could hear running footsteps coming from multiple directions, heavy boots, and the strange flowing sound of Zephyrian movement. They were surrounded, trapped deep, inside the enemy ship with an entire alien army between them and freedom. "There," Kate pointed ahead. "Section 12. In the distance, Jake could see a cage that glowed brighter than the others. Inside, a figure sat slumped against the energy wall. Even from far away, he could tell the person inside was hurt, maybe dying. Luna Price was waiting for them, but so was half the Zephyrian fleet. The alarms screamed through the corridors as Jake and his team ran toward Section 12. Behind them, they could hear the sound of Zephyrian soldiers moving fast, their strange flowing steps getting closer with each second. Ahead, the energy cage glowed brighter, and Jake could see the figure inside more clearly now. Luna Price sat against the wall of her prison, her body bent and broken. Even through the shimmering energy field, Jake could see she had been hurt, badly. Her clothes were torn, and strange burns covered her arms where alien torture devices had touched her skin. Kate and her Marines set up a defensive line behind Jake, their weapons pointed back down the corridor. "They're coming fast, Captain," Kate said. "We don't have much time." Ben worked frantically at the cage controls, his tools sparking against the alien technology. "This is different from anything I've seen before," he said, sweat dripping from his face. "It's not just a lock, it's alive somehow." The first group of Zephyrian guards appeared at the end of the corridor. They were different from the workers Jake had seen before. These were soldiers, bigger and stronger, with weapons that hummed with deadly energy. Their black eyes reflected the red alarm lights as they advanced. Kate's Marines opened fire. The corridor filled with the sound of human bullets and alien energy beams. The air smelled like burned metal and ozone. 2 Marines fell in the first exchange, their bodies smoking from Zephyrian weapons. But the humans kept fighting, using the cage walls for cover. "Ben, hurry up," Jake shouted over the noise of battle. "Almost got it," Ben replied, his hands moving faster than Jake had ever seen them move. "There, the cage is down." The energy field around Luna's prison flickered and died. Jake rushed inside and knelt beside her. Up close, he could see how badly the aliens had hurt her. Her face was hidden behind a strange mask that seemed to shift and change as he looked at it. The mask was some kind of technology he didn't recognize, smooth and featureless, except for 2 dark spaces where her eyes should be. "Luna," Jake said softly. "We're here. We're going to get you out." Luna's head moved slightly. When she spoke, her voice was weak and full of pain. "Jake, you came. I wasn't sure you would." "Of course we came," Jake said, gently lifting her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, as if the torture had taken more than just her strength. "We need those shutdown codes for the Nova Sword." Luna reached into her torn clothing and pulled out a small crystal that glowed with inner light. "This has everything you need," she said. "But Jake, you have to understand. The Nova Sword isn't just pointed at Earth. It's a network of weapons hidden throughout space. If they turn it on, it won't just destroy planets. It will tear holes in reality itself." Jake took the crystal, feeling its warmth in his hand. "What? Do you mean?" The Zephyrians don't just want to kill us, Luna said, her voice getting weaker. They want to erase us from existence, remove us from time itself, like we never happened. The Nova Sword can do that. It can unmake entire species. More Zephyrian soldiers appeared in the corridor. Kate's remaining Marines fought bravely, but they were running out of ammunition and places to hide. "Jake, we need to go now!" Kate shouted. Jake lifted Luna in his arms and started moving. She felt so light, so fragile. Her head rested against his shoulder, and he could feel her breathing getting weaker with each step. They fought their way back through the ship's corridors, but the Zephyrians were everywhere now. The aliens seemed to flow through the walls themselves, appearing from passages Jake hadn't even noticed before. His team was getting smaller with each fight, good people dying to save one woman who might hold the key to humanity's survival. "This way," Amy's voice came through their communicators. She had stayed with the Liberty, keeping it ready for their escape. "I found another route to the docking bay, but you'll have to go through the ship's core." The core of the Void Crusher was unlike anything Jake had imagined. It was a vast, spherical chamber filled with swirling energy and floating platforms. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to have their own heartbeat. In the center, a massive organic structure grew like a tree made of metal and light. "That's their command center," Luna whispered as they moved across one of the floating platforms. "The entire ship is controlled from there." Jake looked at the alien command center and felt a chill. It wasn't just technology. It was alive somehow, thinking and breathing like a giant brain. No wonder the Zephyrians were so different from humans. Their ships were extensions of themselves, living things that obeyed their thoughts. Behind them, more soldiers appeared. These were different again, taller and more frightening, with skin that looked like liquid metal. Their weapons were part of their bodies, growing from their arms like deadly flowers. "Elite guards," Luna said weakly. "The ship's immune system. They know we're close to something important." The battle in the core chamber was the worst yet. The floating platforms moved and shifted, making it hard to find cover. Zephyrian weapons cut through the air like silver lightning. Ben fell first, an energy beam burning through his chest as he tried to reprogram one of the platforms. Danny followed, crying out for his mother as alien claws tore through his armor. Jake held Luna tighter and kept moving. She was all that mattered now. She had the codes that could save Earth and stop the Nova Sword. Everything else was just details. They reached the far side of the core chamber, where another transport shaft waited. As they stepped onto the light platform, Luna grabbed Jake's arm with surprising strength. "Jake," she said, her voice barely a whisper, "I need to tell you something. About who I really am, about why I've been helping humanity." Jake looked down at her masked face. In all the years she had been their guardian angel, he had never wondered about her past. She was just Luna, the spy who saved them again and again. "You don't need to tell me anything," Jake said. "You've done enough." "No," Luna said, and there was urgency in her weak voice. "You need to know. When this is over, when you use those codes, the galaxy will ask questions. They'll want to know why a human would sacrifice so much for people she never met. But Jake, that's not the whole truth." The platform carried them up through the ship's levels, past the strange rooms and twisted corridors. Luna's breathing was getting more shallow, and Jake could feel her body getting colder in his arms. "The Zephyrians have been lying about this war," Luna continued. "They're not the rightful rulers of space. They're rebels, Jake. Criminals who took power by killing anyone who disagreed with them. There are others out there, other Zephyrians, who want peace, who believe different species can work together." Jake felt his understanding of the war beginning to change. "What are you saying?" Luna's hand reached up toward the mask that covered her face. "I'm saying that when we get back to your ship, when I'm dying in your arms, you need to remove this mask. You need to see who I really am, because what's underneath will change everything you think you know about this war." The platform reached the docking bay level. Through the corridors ahead, Jake could see the Liberty waiting for them, its engines already warming up for escape. Amy had done her job well, but Luna was dying in his arms, and her final secret was still hidden behind a mask that Jake was suddenly afraid to remove. The Liberty's engines roared as Amy pushed the ship to its limits, racing away from the Void Crusher. Behind them, Zephyrian fighters gave chase, their weapons lighting up space with deadly beams. But Amy was faster, diving through asteroid fields, and using the rocks for cover until the enemy ships fell behind. Jake carried Luna to the ship's medical bay, her body growing colder with each step. Kate followed, blood running from a cut on her forehead. They were the only ones left from the rescue team. Ben, Danny, and the other Marines had died to save one woman, and Jake hoped their sacrifice would mean something. In the medical bay, Jake laid Luna gently on the examination table. The ship's medical computer began scanning her body, but the results were not good. The alien torture devices had damaged her in ways human medicine couldn't fix. Her cells were breaking down, her organs failing one by one. "How long does she have?" Jake asked the computer. "Approximately 30 minutes, came the cold, mechanical voice. "Damage is too extensive for treatment." Luna's breathing was shallow and painful. Behind her strange mask, Jake could see her eyes moving, still alert despite her dying body. She tried to speak, but only a whisper came out. "The crystal," she managed to say. "The codes. You have to use them carefully, Jake. The Nova Sword network has safeguards. If you try to destroy it with force, it will activate automatically." Jake held the glowing crystal in his hand. It was warm, almost alive, pulsing with the rhythm of Luna's heartbeat. "How do we stop it then?" "Cooperation," Luna said, the word coming out like a prayer. The weapons were designed to need agreement from multiple commanders. If enough Zephyrian ships refuse to fire, the network shuts down. But Jake, to make them refuse, you'll need to show them the truth. "What truth?" Jake asked, but he thought he already knew the answer. Luna's hand moved slowly toward her face. Her fingers touched the edge of the mask that had hidden her identity for 3 years. "The truth about who I really am? About what this war really means?" Amy's voice came over the intercom from the bridge. "Jake, you need to see this. We're getting messages from all over the galaxy. Word is spreading about our raid on the Void Crusher. The Zephyrians are mobilizing everything they have." Jake looked at Luna, torn between staying with her and dealing with the crisis outside. But Luna made the choice for him. "Go," she whispered. "See what's happening. Then come back. I'll wait for you." Jake squeezed her hand and rushed to the bridge. On the main screen, he could see space filling with ships. Not just Zephyrian vessels, but others, too. Strange alien craft he didn't recognize, some beautiful, some terrifying, all heading toward Earth. "Who are they?" Jake asked. Amy worked at her controls, trying to identify the new arrivals. "I don't know. The computer doesn't recognize their designs. But Jake, some of them are fighting the Zephyrians. Look." On the screen, Jake watched a battle unlike anything he had ever seen. Ships of different designs and technologies fought against the Zephyrian fleet. Weapons he couldn't understand lit up space with colors that had no names. "How is this possible?" Kate asked. "Where did all these ships come from?" Before Jake could answer, his communication system came alive with messages in languages he had never heard. But somehow he understood them. The universal translators were working, turning alien words into human speech. "This is Captain Vex of the Free Zephyrian Fleet," came one voice. "We stand with the human resistance against the Empire's genocide." "Keth Battle Group responding to Luna's signal," came another. "We fight for cooperation, not conquest." The CRD Moray Collective honors the sacrifice of the spy Luna Price. "We will defend Earth." Jake stared at the screen in amazement. Luna hadn't just been feeding them information about the Zephyrian Empire. She had been building an alliance, bringing together species from across the galaxy who opposed the war. "Jake," Amy said quietly, "Luna's vital signs are failing. If you want to talk to her again, you better hurry." Jake ran back to the medical bay, his mind spinning with questions. Who was Luna Price? How had she contacted all those alien races? And why were they willing to fight and die for humanity? He found Luna exactly where he had left her, but she looked smaller now, more fragile. The mask on her face seemed to be the only thing keeping her together. "Luna," Jake said, kneeling beside her. "The whole galaxy is out there, ships from dozens of different worlds, all fighting for us. How did you do it?" Luna's hand moved toward her mask again. "Because they know what the Zephyrian Empire really is," she whispered. "Not the rightful rulers of space, but destroyers who want to remake the universe in their own image. These other races, they've been hiding, waiting for someone to stand up to the Empire. But why you?" Jake asked. "Why would they trust a human spy?" Luna was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was so soft Jake had to lean close to hear her. "Because I'm not just human, Jake. That's what I've been trying to tell you. That's why you need to remove my mask. The galaxy needs to see who I really am, what I represent." Jake's hands trembled as he reached for the edges of Luna's mask. For 3 years, this woman had been a voice in the darkness, a guardian angel who saved them again and again. He had imagined her face 1,000 times, but he had never imagined this moment would be so frightening. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Do it, Jake. For humanity, for all the species fighting out there. Show them that cooperation is possible." Jake gently pulled the mask away from Luna's face. What he saw underneath made him gasp and stumble backward. Luna's skin had the same translucent quality as the Zephyrians, but it was warmer, more human. Her eyes were larger than human eyes, but they held human emotions. Her face was beautiful in a way that was both alien and familiar, like seeing a relative from a distant world. "You're half Zephyrian," Jake said, his voice full of wonder and fear. "My mother was human," Luna said, her real voice clearer now without the mask. "My father was Zephyrian. They met before the war, before the Empire took power. There were others like me once, children of both worlds. But the Empire killed them all. They were afraid of what we represented." Jake stared at her face, trying to understand what this meant. "What did you represent?" "Hope," Luna said simply. "Proof that different species could work together, could create something beautiful instead of just destroying each other. The Empire couldn't allow that. So they started this war, blamed humanity for crimes we never committed, and tried to erase any evidence that cooperation was possible." The ship shook as explosions lit up space outside. The battle was getting closer, more intense. But Jake couldn't look away from Luna's face. "The Alliance out there," he said. "They're fighting because of you." "They're fighting because of what I represent," Luna corrected. "The possibility that this galaxy doesn't have to be ruled by fear and hatred. Jake, you have to promise me something. When I die, when this is over, you have to show them my face. You have to tell them my story." Jake nodded, tears running down his cheeks. "I promise." Luna smiled, and her smile was the most beautiful thing Jake had ever seen. Human and alien at the same time, full of love for people she had never met and worlds she would never see. "Thank you," she whispered. And then her eyes closed, and the woman who had saved humanity began to die in Jake's arms. Luna Price died quietly in Jake's arms, her beautiful hybrid face peaceful at last. Jake sat with her body for a long time, holding her hand and thinking about everything she had told him. Outside, the battle raged as ships from across the galaxy fought against the Zephyrian Empire. But inside the medical bay, there was only silence and the weight of promises that had to be kept. Amy's voice came over the intercom, breaking the quiet. "Jake, Admiral Clark is calling. He wants to know about the shutdown codes." Jake gently closed Luna's eyes and stood up. He still held the crystal she had given him, warm and pulsing with stored information. The codes that could stop the Nova Sword were inside, but using them the wrong way could make everything worse. On the bridge, Admiral Clark's face filled the main screen. He was an old man with gray hair and hard eyes, someone who had been fighting this war since the beginning. Behind him, Jake could see the bridge of the flagship Defiance, busy with officers preparing for the final battle. "Morrison," the Admiral said, "did you get what we need?" Jake held up the crystal. "I have the shutdown codes for the Nova Sword network, but Admiral, there's something you need to know about Luna Price, about this whole war. I don't care about—" "The spy's life story," Clark said impatiently. "Can those codes destroy the weapon or not?" "They can stop it," Jake said carefully, "but not the way you think. The network has safeguards. If we try to use force, it activates automatically. We need cooperation from Zephyrian commanders to shut it down peacefully." Admiral Clark's face turned red with anger. "Cooperation? Morrison? These aliens have been trying to wipe out humanity for 3 years. Now we finally have a weapon that can end this war, and you want to negotiate?" Jake looked at Luna's body, covered with a white sheet on the medical table. He thought about her last words, about the Alliance fighting outside, about what she had died to protect. "Admiral, Luna wasn't just human. She was half Zephyrian. Her father was one of them. This war isn't what we think it is." "I don't care if she was half dragon," Clark shouted. "Those codes belong to humanity now. We're going to use them to destroy the Zephyrian homeworld and end this war once and for all." "Sir, that's exactly what they want us to do," Jake said. "The Empire started this war to prove that humans are violent and destructive. If we use their own weapon against their people, we become the monsters they say we are. Then we'll be living monsters instead of dead heroes," Clark replied. "Transfer those codes to me immediately. That's an order." Jake looked at the crystal in his hand. It would be easy to send the codes to Admiral Clark. Let him use the Nova Sword to destroy the Zephyrian homeworld. Billions of aliens would die, but humanity would be safe. It was what any smart military leader would do, but it wasn't what Luna had died for. "I'm sorry, Admiral," Jake said. "I can't do that." Clark's face turned purple with rage. "Morrison, you're committing treason. Have you court-martialed and shot?" "Maybe," Jake said. "But first, the galaxy needs to know the truth." Jake cut the communication with Admiral Clark and turned to Amy. "Open a channel to all ships in the area. Human, Zephyrian, everyone." Amy's fingers moved over her controls. "Channel open, Jake. You're broadcasting to the entire battle zone." Jake took a deep breath and began to speak. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Liberty. 3 hours ago, I extracted Agent Luna Price from the Zephyrian command ship. She died giving us the codes to stop the Nova Sword. But before she died, she told me the truth about this war." On the main screen, Jake could see ships from both sides slowing their attacks, listening to his words. The battle was still going on, but some commanders were curious enough to hear what he had to say. "Luna Price was not just human," Jake continued. "She was the child of a human mother and a Zephyrian father. She was proof that our species could work together, could create something beautiful instead of just destroying each other. The current Zephyrian Empire killed her family and started this war to hide that truth." Jake picked up Luna's body and carried her to the bridge. Very gently, he pulled back the sheet so the cameras could see her face. Her beautiful, peaceful, hybrid face. "Look at her," Jake said to the galaxy. "This is what they were afraid of. This is why they tried to erase us from existence. Because together, humans and Zephyrians could build something better than either species could build alone." The effect was immediate and dramatic. On Zephyrian ships throughout the fleet, crews stopped fighting and stared at their screens. Some had never seen a hybrid before. Others remembered stories their grandparents had told, stories about the peaceful time before the Empire took power. Captain Vex's voice came over the communication system. "The girl speaks truth. I am old enough to remember the hybrids. The Empire called them abominations and had them killed. But I remember their wisdom, their kindness." More Zephyrian voices joined in. Younger officers who had never heard these stories before. Older ones who had hidden their doubts about the war for years. Ship after ship began declaring that they would not fire the Nova Sword. But not all of them agreed. The Imperial fleet was large, and many commanders were loyal to the Empire's vision of galactic purity. Admiral Kresh, the Zephyrian Supreme Commander, appeared on screens throughout the battle zone. "Do not be fooled by human lies," Kresh said, his four arms gesturing angrily. "The hybrids were genetic mistakes, proof that mixing species leads to weakness. This war is about survival of the strongest, and the Empire is strongest." Jake watched as the Zephyrian fleet began to split apart. Some ships moved away from the battle, refusing to fight. Others formed up around Kresh's flagship, ready to use the Nova Sword no matter what the cost. "Admiral Clark is mobilizing the human fleet," Amy reported. "He's planning to attack while the Zephyrians are arguing among themselves." Jake realized that the moment of choice had arrived. Humanity could join the violent faction and try to win through force, or they could choose cooperation and risk everything on the hope that Luna's sacrifice had meaning. "Amy," Jake said, "take us between the two fleets." "Jake, that's suicide," Kate said. "They'll both shoot at us." "Maybe," Jake said, "but someone has to show them there's another way." The Liberty moved slowly between the human and Zephyrian fleets. Jake opened communications to both sides. "This is Captain Morrison. I have the shutdown codes for the Nova Sword. I'm not giving them to Admiral Clark to use as a weapon. I'm not giving them to Admiral Kresh to continue his genocide. I'm broadcasting them to every ship in both fleets." Jake held up the crystal and activated it. Information flowed out across space, reaching every vessel in the battle zone. The shutdown codes, Luna's recordings about the true history of the war, evidence about the peaceful Zephyrians who oppose the Empire. "The choice is yours," Jake said to the galaxy. "You can use this information to build weapons and continue killing each other, or you can use it to build something better." Luna Price died believing that different species could work together. Don't let her sacrifice be meaningless. For a moment, space was silent except for the hum of engines and the distant glow of stars. Then, one by one, ships from both fleets began powering down their weapons. Not all of them, but enough. The Nova Sword network, designed to require unanimous agreement, began shutting down as commanders throughout the galaxy chose cooperation over conquest. The war wasn't over. There would still be fighting, still be those who chose hatred over hope. But Luna's dream of cooperation had been given a chance to grow. And in the medical bay of the Liberty, a small hybrid woman smiled in her eternal sleep, knowing that her sacrifice had changed the galaxy forever. 3 weeks after Luna's death, Jake stood in what used to be the command center of a destroyed space station. The station orbited a small moon between Earth and the former Zephyrian front lines. It had been damaged in the war, but now humans and aliens were working together to fix it. Jake watched through a large window as ships from dozens of different worlds docked at the station. Some were human vessels, others were Zephyrian, and many belonged to species he was still learning about. The Keth had ships that looked like giant crystals. The Moray built vessels that moved like fish through space. Each race brought their own technology and their own ideas about how to build peace. "Captain Morrison," came a voice behind him. Jake turned to see Captain Vex approaching. The old Zephyrian moved slowly, his 4 arms carrying data pads and communication devices. His translucent skin was marked with scars from the war, but his black eyes were kind. "Captain Vex," Jake said, offering his hand in the human gesture of greeting. Vex had learned to shake hands, though his grip was still strange to Jake. "How are the negotiations going?" Vex made a sound that Jake had learned was Zephyrian laughter. "Badly and well at the same time," he said. "The Terran Coalition wants guarantees about territory. The Free Zephyrian Fleet wants justice for war crimes. The smaller species want protection from future wars. Everyone wants something different." Jake nodded. Building peace was harder than fighting war. In war, you knew who your enemies were and what you had to do. In peace, everyone was supposed to be your friend, but they all had different ideas about what friendship meant. "What about Admiral Clark?" Jake asked. Vex's expression grew serious. "He has taken his fleet to the outer systems. He refuses to recognize the new alliance. He says humanity should rule the galaxy through strength, not cooperation." Jake felt a familiar weight in his chest. Admiral Clark wasn't the only human who thought that way. Many people on Earth believed that since they had helped stop the Nova Sword, they deserved to be the most important species in the galaxy. They didn't understand that power shared was stronger than power hoarded. "And Admiral Kresh?" Jake asked. "Escaped to the Dark Nebula with his loyalist forces," Vex replied. "He broadcasts messages calling the Alliance weak and unnatural. He promises to return with new weapons to finish what the Empire started." Jake looked out at the ships docking with the station. So many different shapes and sizes, so many different ways of thinking about the universe. It was beautiful, but it was also fragile. One wrong move, one moment of mistrust, and everything could fall apart. "Captain," Amy's voice came through, his communicator. "You're needed in the memorial chamber." Jake and Vex walked through the station's corridors together. The walls showed signs of hasty repair work, human welding patches next to Zephyrian organic sealants, Keth crystal reinforcements, growing through sections that had been cut by Moray energy tools. The station itself was becoming a symbol of cooperation. The memorial chamber was a large room near the center of the station. In the middle stood a statue of Luna Price, but not as she had appeared with her mask. The statue showed her true face, beautiful and hybrid, with features that belonged to both humans and Zephyrians. Around the statue, representatives from all the Alliance species had gathered. Jake recognized most of them now. Commander Sarah Kim from the Terran Coalition Navy, Engineer Ben Cross, who had taken over Ben Hayes' job after his death, Marine Captain Kate Sullivan, who had survived the mission to rescue Luna and now helped train mixed-species security teams. But there were aliens, too. The Keth sang in harmonies that made the air shimmer. The Moray flowed through the room like living water. The Veltar stood perfectly still, their plant-like bodies reaching toward the light fixtures like flowers seeking sun. "We gather today to remember Luna Price," said Dr. Elena Martinez, who had become the Alliance's chief mediator. "She gave her life so that different species could learn to work together." Jake listened as speaker after speaker talked about Luna's sacrifice. They spoke in many languages, but the universal translators let everyone understand. Some told stories about messages Luna had sent them during the war. Others talked about the hope her mixed heritage represented. When Jake's turn came, he stepped forward and looked at the statue. The artist had captured something in Luna's face that Jake remembered from her final moments. Not just peace, but determination. The look of someone who had chosen to believe in something better. "Luna taught us that we don't have to be the same to work together," Jake said. "She was human and Zephyrian at the same time. She proved that different doesn't mean enemy. It just means different." After the ceremony, Jake found himself alone with the statue. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal Luna had given him. The shutdown codes were public knowledge now, but Jake kept the crystal as a reminder. It still glowed softly, as if some part of Luna's spirit lived inside. "You would have liked seeing this," Jake said to the statue. "All these species working together, building something new." "She did see it," came a voice behind him. Jake turned to see a young woman approaching. She had the same translucent skin as the Zephyrians, but her eyes were human brown and her hair was red like fire. "I'm sorry," Jake said. "I don't think—" "We've met." The woman smiled, and her smile reminded Jake of Luna's. "My name is Maya Chen. I'm Dr. Chen's daughter, but that's not the only reason I wanted to meet you." Jake studied her face more carefully. Like Luna, she had features that belonged to more than one species. "You're a hybrid. One of 7 that we know of," Maya said. "The Empire thought they had killed us all, but some of us survived. We've been hiding, waiting for the right time to reveal ourselves." Jake felt his heart racing. "Luna wasn't the only one." "She was the bravest of us," Maya said. "She chose to fight when the rest of us chose to hide. But now, thanks to her sacrifice, we can come forward. We can help build the future she dreamed of." Maya reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. "This contains the locations of other hybrid communities throughout the galaxy. Luna wasn't just building an alliance of different species. She was building a network of people who already proved that cooperation works." Jake took the device, feeling its weight in his hands. It was heavier than it looked because it carried the weight of possibility. "What do you want me to do with this?" Jake asked. "Help us contact them," Maya said. "Help us bring them into the Alliance. The galaxy is still fragile, Captain Morrison. Admiral Clark and Admiral Kresh are both gathering forces for another war. The smaller species are starting to choose sides. We need proof that different groups can work together." Jake looked at the statue of Luna Price, then at Maya Chen, then at the device in his hands. The war might be over, but the peace was just beginning. And peace, Jake was learning, was much harder work than war. "When do we start?" Jake asked. Maya smiled again, and in that smile, Jake saw the future Luna had died for. A galaxy where being different wasn't something to fear, but something to celebrate. "Tomorrow," Maya said. "We start building the world Luna believed in tomorrow." Outside the memorial chamber, ships from across the galaxy continued to dock with the station. Each one brought new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove that cooperation was stronger than conquest. The real work was just beginning. 2 months after meeting Maya Chen, Jake found himself standing on the bridge of a ship unlike any he had ever seen. The vessel was called Unity, and it had been built by teams from 12 different species working together. The hull was made from human steel reinforced with Keth crystals. The engines used Zephyrian energy flow technology powered by Moray biosystems. Even the air recycling system was a combination of Veltar plant filters and Terran mechanical pumps. Maya stood beside him at the navigation console, her hybrid features now familiar and comforting. Over the past weeks, she had become his partner in the work of building the new alliance. Her knowledge of different species and their cultures had helped solve dozens of small problems before they became big wars. "Contact in 30 seconds, Amy reported from the pilot's seat. She had volunteered to fly the Unity on its first major mission, even though the ship's controls were strange combinations of technologies from different worlds. Jake checked the communication system one more time. Today, they would make contact with the first hidden hybrid community on Maya's list, a group of human Veltar hybrids living on a forest moon in the Spiral sector. But the mission had become more complicated than anyone expected. "Captain," came Kate's voice from the security station. "I'm reading ships on approach. Human vessels, but not Alliance." Jake's stomach dropped. "Admiral Clark?" "Confirmed," Kate said grimly. 3 destroyers and a cruiser. The Vengeance, the Retribution, the Justice, and the Righteous Fury." Jake almost laughed at the names, but there was nothing funny about the situation. Admiral Clark had been gathering ships and crews who believed humanity should rule the galaxy through force. He called his fleet the Human Supremacy Movement, and he had been attacking alien settlements throughout the outer systems. "He's trying to reach the hybrid community before we do," Maya said, her voice tight with worry. "If he gets there first..." Jake understood. Admiral Clark saw the hybrids as proof that humans were being weakened by contact with aliens. He had been broadcasting messages throughout human space, claiming that mixing with other species would destroy humanity's strength and purity. "Amy, can we beat them there?" Jake asked. Amy's fingers flew over the controls. "It'll be close. The Unity is faster than his old ships, but they had a head start." The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, and space around them turned into a tunnel of flowing stars. Jake used the time to contact the Alliance Command Center back at the station. "This is Unity calling Alliance Command," Jake said into the communicator. Dr. Martinez's face appeared on the screen, but she looked worried. "Jake, we've been trying to reach you. Admiral Clark isn't the only problem. Admiral Kresh has been spotted in the same sector with a Zephyrian battle group." Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Both of them are going after the hybrid community?" "It looks that way," Dr. Martinez said. "Kresh wants to destroy the hybrids as proof that mixing species is an abomination. Clark wants to capture them and use them as examples of alien contamination. Either way, those people are in terrible danger." Maya stepped forward so the camera could see her. "Doctor, how many people are we talking about?" "Intelligence says about 200, Dr. Martinez replied. "Men, women, children. They've been hiding in the forest for 20 years, building a peaceful community. They don't even have weapons." Jake made his decision. "We're going to protect them." "Jake, you have one ship against 2 fleets, Dr. Martinez said. "Even with Unity's advanced systems, you can't fight that many enemies." "Then we won't fight," Jake said. "We'll do what Luna would have done. We'll show them a better way, Sci." Unity dropped out of faster-than-light speed near a green and blue moon covered in vast forests. It was beautiful and peaceful, with no cities or industrial complexes. Just trees and rivers and small communities living in harmony with nature. But the moon wasn't alone anymore. Admiral Clark's human ships hung in space on one side. Admiral Kresh's Zephyrian vessels waited on the other. Both fleets were holding their positions, but Jake could see weapons charging and fighters launching. "This is Admiral Clark to the unknown." "Vessel," came a harsh voice over the communication system. "Identify yourself and state your business in this system." Jake opened communications to both fleets. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Alliance ship Unity. We're here under diplomatic protection protocols to make contact with the peaceful community on this moon." Admiral Clark's face appeared on one half of the main screen. He was older than... Jake remembered, his gray hair now white, his eyes harder and more angry. "Morrison, you traitor. That moon contains human citizens who have been contaminated by alien influence. I'm here to rescue them and return them to proper human space." Admiral Kresh's image filled the other half of the screen. The Zephyrian commander looked exactly like Jake remembered from the war, tall and cold, with 4 arms that moved like weapons. "The abominations on that moon are proof that species mixing leads to weakness. They will be eliminated to preserve galactic purity." Jake looked at both commanders, these men who had been so consumed by hatred that they couldn't see any other way forward. "Admirals, the people on that moon aren't threats to anyone. They're families, children. They chose to live in peace." "Peace built on genetic corruption," Kresh said. "Peace that weakens human strength," Clark added. Maya stepped forward where both admirals could see her clearly. "Gentlemen, I am a hybrid, human and Zephyrian. Do I look weak to you?" Admiral Clark's face twisted with disgust. "You're exactly what I'm talking about, an abomination that proves aliens are trying to destroy us from within." Admiral Kresh had a similar reaction. "Genetic impurity made manifest. You should not exist." Jake felt anger building in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. Getting angry wouldn't help the people on the moon below. "Maya," Jake said quietly, "contact the hybrid community. Tell them what's happening." Maya worked at the communication controls. Soon, the screen showed a third image. A woman who looked like she might be part human and part Veltar, with skin that had a greenish tint and hair that moved like leaves in the wind. "I am Lily Thornwood. the woman said, her voice musical and calm. "I speak for the Grove community. We know why you're all here. We've been watching your ship since you arrived." "Ma'am," Jake said, "we're here to offer you protection and a place in the new alliance. But these other fleets want to hurt you." Lily smiled, and her smile was peaceful in a way that reminded Jake of Luna's final moments. "Captain Morrison, we appreciate your offer, but we don't need protection." Admiral Clark laughed harshly. "You don't have a choice, contaminated ones. You're coming with us whether you want to or not. And if you resist," Admiral Kresh added, "you will be destroyed as enemies of natural order." Lily's expression didn't change. "Admirals, you're welcome to land on our moon if you wish. Come see how we live, meet our families, talk to our children. You might learn something." "I'm not here to talk," Clark said. "I'm here to rescue humans from alien corruption. And I am here to eliminate genetic mistakes," Kresh said. Jake watched both admirals, seeing the certainty in their faces. They had made up their minds long ago. Nothing would change them. But maybe their crews were different. "Open a channel to all ships in the system," Jake told Maya. When the channel was open, Jake began to speak. "This is Captain Morrison to all, personnel in both fleets. Look at your screens. You're seeing Lily Thornwood, a leader of a peaceful community that has harmed no one. You're also seeing Maya Chen, a hybrid who has spent months helping different species work together." Jake paused, letting his words sink in. "Your admirals want you to attack families and children because they're different. But I'm asking you to think about what Luna Price died for. She believed that being different wasn't something to fear, but something to celebrate." On the screen, Jake could see uncertainty appearing on some faces in both fleets. Not everyone, but enough to matter. The test of unity had begun. Jake's words echoed through space as crew members on both fleets listened to his broadcast. On the main screen, he could see faces in the background of Admiral Clark's and Admiral Kresh's ships. Some looked angry and determined. Others looked uncertain and troubled. "Don't listen to the traitor," Admiral Clark shouted at his crews. "He's been brainwashed by alien influence. Remember what we're fighting for. Pure humanity, strong and free." Admiral Kresh made similar commands to his forces. "The Alliance has corrupted weak minds with false promises. We fight to preserve the natural order of the galaxy." But Jake could see that their words weren't reaching everyone. A young officer on Clark's ship was shaking his head. A Zephyrian on Kresh's vessel had all four arms crossed in what Jake had learned was a gesture of disagreement. Lily Thornwood spoke again from the moon's surface. Her voice was calm and musical, like wind through forest leaves. "Admirals, your crews are welcome to visit our community. Bring weapons if you feel you must, but come see how we live before you decide to destroy us." "I've seen enough," Admiral Clark said. "All ships prepare to beam down assault teams. We're going to rescue the humans and eliminate the alien contamination." "Zephyrian fleet, ready your purification weapons," Admiral Kresh ordered. "We will cleanse this moon of genetic impurity." Jake felt his heart racing. Both fleets were preparing to attack, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. The Unity was just one ship against dozens. But then something unexpected happened. "Admiral Clark," came a voice from one of the human ships. "This is Captain Lisa Park of the destroyer Justice. Sir, I'm requesting permission to conduct a reconnaissance mission before we attack." Admiral Clark's face turned red with anger. "Captain Park, you have your orders. Begin the assault." "Sir, military protocol requires proper intelligence before attacking an unknown target," Captain Park replied. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the tension in it. "I need to verify the threat level before putting my crew at risk." On the Zephyrian side, a similar conversation was happening. "Commander Zethvar of the cruiser Eternal Purity requesting clarification of target parameters," came another voice. Admiral Kresh's four arms moved in agitation. "The parameters are simple. Destroy all genetic aberrations." "Sir, preliminary. Scans indicate the presence of juvenile life forms. Confirming rules of engagement regarding non-combatant elimination, Commander Zethvar said. Jake realized what was happening. Luna's message about cooperation and peace had spread farther than anyone knew. Even in Admiral Clark's and Admiral Kresh's fleets, there were people who had been listening and thinking and questioning. Maya stepped forward to the communication console. Captain Park, Commander Zethvar. This is Maya Chen. I'm a human Zephyrian, hybrid, and I'm alive because people like you chose to think instead of just following orders. You see, Admiral Clark shouted, the corruption has already spread to my own fleet. Captain Park, you are relieved of command. Commander Barnes, take control of the Justice and begin the attack. But Commander Barnes didn't respond. After a moment, his voice came over the communication system. Admiral, I respectfully request permission to hear what the hybrid has to say. Admiral Kresh was having similar problems. More and more voices were asking questions, requesting clarification, wondering if maybe there was another way. Jake saw his chance. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. I'm going to show you something. Maya, transmit Luna's final message. Maya's fingers moved over the controls, and suddenly every screen in both fleets showed Luna Price's dying words. Her beautiful hybrid, face, peaceful and determined, talking about hope and cooperation and the possibility that different species could build something better together. The effect was immediate. On ship after ship, crew members stopped what they were doing and watched. Some of them had heard the message before, during the final battle with the Nova Sword. Others were seeing it for the first time. When Luna's message ended, the space around. The moon was silent except for the hum of engines and the distant whisper of solar wind. Then Captain Park spoke again. Admiral Clark, I'm taking the Justice out of formation. My crew and I want to visit the moon's surface before we make any decisions about attacking families. Mutiny, Admiral Clark said, but his voice was quieter now, less certain. Not mutiny. Sir, Captain Park replied. Conscience. Commander Zethvar spoke for the Zephyrian fleet. Admiral Kresh, the Eternal Purity will also conduct surface reconnaissance. My crew deserves to see what we're being asked to destroy. One by one, ships from both fleets broke formation. Not all of them, but enough to matter. They moved toward the moon's surface, their weapons powered down, their crews ready to see something they had never seen before. Admiral Clark and Admiral Kresh were left with maybe half their original forces. The other ships had chosen to think for themselves instead of following orders blindly. Jake watched the breakaway ships land on the moon's surface near the Grove community. Through the Unity's sensors, he could see what happened next. The hybrid families came out to meet their visitors. Human Veltar children who looked like living flowers ran up to the landing parties with curiosity instead of fear. Adults who combined. The best features of both species offered food and water to the armed soldiers who had come to attack them. Captain Park removed her helmet and breathed the clean forest air. She knelt down to talk to a child who had green skin and human eyes. Commander Zethvar watched Zephyrian human teenagers working together to maintain their community's power systems. For the first time, these soldiers saw what Luna had died for. Not weakness or corruption, but strength and beauty and hope. This is Captain Park to Admiral Clark, came the voice from the surface. Sir, these people aren't a threat to anyone. They're families. They're living proof that cooperation works. They're living proof that different doesn't mean enemy, added Commander Zethvar. Admiral Kresh, my recommendation is to establish diplomatic contact, not military action. Admiral Clark's face was purple with rage. Park! You're court-martialed. All crews on the surface are court-martialed. You've all been contaminated by alien influence. Admiral Kresh was equally angry. Zethvar, you have betrayed your species and your duty. When I return to High Command, you will face trial for treason. But their threats felt empty now. Too many people had seen the truth. Jake opened communications to the remaining hostile ships. Admirals, it's over. More than half your fleets have chosen peace over war. You can't fight the whole galaxy. Watch me, Admiral Clark said. His remaining ships began moving toward the moon, weapons charging. Admiral Kresh made the same choice. Genetic purity must be preserved, whatever the cost. Jake knew what he had to do. It was dangerous, maybe suicidal, but it was what Luna would have done. Amy, take us between the attack ships and the moon, he ordered. Jake, they'll destroy. Us, Amy said. Maybe, Jake replied, but they'll have to go through us first. The Unity moved to block the attacking fleets, one ship against dozens, standing between hatred and hope. Then something beautiful happened. The ships that had broken away from Clark and Kresh began returning to space. They formed up around the Unity, creating a protective wall between the, attackers and the moon. Captain Park's voice came over the communication system. This is the combined peaceful fleet. Admiral Clark, Admiral Kresh, you are ordered to stand down. Jake smiled as he looked at the ships around him. Human vessels flying next to Zephyrian ones. Crews who had been enemies an hour ago now working together to protect innocent people. You see that? Maya said, pointing at the screen. That's what Luna died for. That's her real legacy. The two admirals, faced with overwhelming opposition from their own former crews, finally retreated. Their remaining ships jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the moon in peace. Jake stood on the bridge of the Unity, surrounded by new allies who had chosen hope over hatred. Below them, the Grove community continued its peaceful existence, protected by people who had learned that being different was something to celebrate, not destroy. Luna Price was gone, but her dream was alive and growing stronger every day. The galaxy was learning, one choice at a time, that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that love was more powerful than fear. And in the forests of a small moon, hybrid children played under alien stars, living proof that the future belonged to those brave enough to believe in it.